As a binary output, we have a lot of functions in this device. This power block is one of the devices with most functions in one KNX device. It has the same application program as the microBIC series. Obviously, the microBIC series also have inputs. In the future, maybe the power block also will have inputs, but for the moment being, they only have outputs, and the application program is incredible. Let's have a look. As a binary output, we have in the application program the possibility to configure the normal binary functions and advanced binary functions per output. But later we will see also there are advanced functions totally independent of the output. So you can use the advanced functions of the actuator 100% totally independent of the output for a totally different device. But we can now have a look at the binary output as such. We have the possibility to configure the type of output, if it's normal open or normal close contact. And then we have got a lot of functions like the status before bus failure can be set, timer functions, reaction at on, reaction at off, the reaction at bus voltage failure and recovery. And obviously the status can be set to be sent on change or on each event, inverted. So it's very flexible, the configuration. What is very important in the microBIC and power block actuator series is that it has a lot of functions. It has incredible lot of functions. But to make it easy for the integrator, you don't need to configure anything. So if you want, you only have to select the type of channel you want to use. If you want to use it as a binary channel, you select binary channel, and you will have all the objects and all the preset configurations will be perfect. So you don't need to go into the advanced functions. The advanced functions are there to use if you want to have something special. But to do the normal on-off switching function of an actuator or the normal up-down blind set to position or status of the objects, they are automatically configured by default so that you can use it straight away without having to go into various sub-menus and features. So there's also a disable function in the channel. So you can decide when you receive a 1 or a 0, should it be disabled with a 1 or should it be disabled with a 0? And the behavior of the channel if you set it to disable. So block it on or block it switched off. And also the actuator has 8 alarms. They can be configured in the advanced functions. And these 8 alarms can be set alarm from alarm 1 to alarm 8, being with the highest priority alarm 1 and the lowest priority alarm 8. So this makes it very, very flexible. These alarms can even be analog alarms. So you can use a weather station, and the weather station can send the analog values to the device, and you can set the thresholds of these analog values so that the actuator reacts on those thresholds. And they can be even with a priority. So this makes it very, very flexible for your use. So for instance, if there is a higher priority alarm, the actuator should switch on. If there's a lower priority alarm, maybe it should switch off. But if it switch off and the higher priority alarm comes, it will switch on again. Okay, and depending on the configuration of the alarm, it can set the output to a different state. And when the alarms go away, the output can, depending on the priority, switch on or off. Also, you can set an acknowledge function in these alarms. So if you set the acknowledge function, if alarm goes away, it won't, the alarm still will be as if it was there because you haven't acknowledged this alarm. So you need to acknowledge the alarm for the alarm to really go away. That can be also very, very important because maybe you're using the output to switch off a water supply. Maybe it's cutting off the water supply, but the water sensor is detecting there's no water anymore because the water has been cut off by the actuator. So it's getting dry, and the water sensor doesn't detect anymore the breakage anymore. So now, if the actuator would automatically open the water again, the breakage wasn't fixed. So there's still a broken pipe. So the water will still go out, and the whole story will start from over again. The water detector will detect again that there's water. It will switch off again, and you never fix really the problem. So for this not to happen, you have the acknowledge function. So the water won't flow again until you fix the problem, until you go to the pipes and fix the problem, and then you can acknowledge. Now it's fixed, and now the actuator starts to work normally again. Okay, so these are the alarm functions. Now the disable object can be set to be in between the alarms. So you can decide how important is the disable, if it has higher priority or lower priority than the different alarms. That's also very, very interesting. Afterwards, the alarms go away. Okay, so first of all, the alarms come, and depending on the priority, the output switches on or off. And then you can also decide what should happen when the alarm go away. So if all alarms go away, then the output should switch on, switch off, don't do anything. You can even set it to go to the state it should have been in if there were no alarms active at that moment. So this is very, very interesting. So maybe a time switch, you set a time switcher to switch on the output at 8 o'clock. But at 8 o'clock, there was still an alarm, and the output was switched off. It switched off because of the alarm. So it missed the on switching of the time switch. Now the alarm goes away, and the output is still off. So it would have been good if this output goes to the status where the time switch set it to, because the time switch switched it on, but it couldn't switch on because there was still, the alarm was still present, so it was so it's an off. Now, if you set it to the status before, there's a function which is called set to tracked state, then it will go to the status to the on state, because the time switch switched it on at that time. So it will go to the state as if it was not blocked during that whole time. Okay, so this is very, very interesting also. And the disable function, as I said, you can also decide what should happen if it goes away with the same behavior. Then you've got two timers linked to the channel. Afterwards, we will see we also have timers to be used with any other function in the KNX installation. But we have got the big advantage of having it already linked to the channel is you don't need to link it with group addresses at all. So you just need to configure those timers, and they are already linked to this output. This makes it much faster to configure the outputs, the functions of the actuator. So these timers can be set to on delay, for off delay, for making a on, off, or just as a staircase function. The staircase function is a very useful function, and the staircase function of these timers are very, very complete. So you can switch the output on during a time, and then it automatically switches off. That can be used instead of a presence detector, for instance. So you can use a push button. You send the 1 to the output of the channel, or to the timer function of this channel, and then the output will switch on during the staircase time and automatically switch afterwards off again. Now, this staircase function can be extended the time with various on pulses. So if you switch on 3 times, then it will multiply the staircase time by 3, making it very easy to make a longer or shorter staircase time for the end customer. So the end customer, you tell the end customer each pulse is 1 minute, and he can put 5 pulses, and then the light stays on 5 minutes. You can also decide whether or not the output should, or the staircase should retrigger itself. So if the staircase, if you set it not to retrigger, when the staircase is already on and you press it again, it won't reset the time. But if you set it to be retriggered, then if you press the button while the staircase is on, it will reset the time. And you can decide whether to reset it with the normal staircase time or with the time which you used to multiply. So if you multiplied it, say the staircase time is 1 minute, and you set it not to with the multiplication factor, then it will reset the time 1 minute more. But if it was with the multiplication time, it will reset the time 5 minutes if you have pressed 5 times in the beginning. So this is very, very interesting, a very interesting function. Obviously, you can also decide what should happen if you receive an off on the staircase time. Okay, so these are the timers. As you can see, the timers are very, very complete. Then you have also 8 scenes in the which you can configure per output. This is additionally to the scene module. We will later have a look at the advanced functions. We've got a basic scene module and an advanced scene module. Additionally to those scene modules, we've got the normal KNX scene 8-bit scene object, which can, and which is also very important, is there's one scene object per output. So actually you have got much more possibilities than having only one scene object for the whole actuator. So you've got one scene object per output, which you can set if scene 1 comes, the output is on. If scene 2 comes, the output is off, and so on. You can also exclude a scene, which is also important. Some manufacturers don't have that possibility. And then most of the functions, almost all functions have an enable-disable object, which is also very interesting because you can disable that, and you can set also the behavior of this enable-disable object for when the power goes down and the power goes up. Then you've got additional functions which like the enable-disable manual control of the channel, which can be very useful because on top of the actuator you've got manual buttons. You've got small buttons which can be used during the commissioning of the installation to check whether or not the cabling is correct. So you can switch on and off by pressing the buttons on top of the device. Now sometimes there's one of the channels which are for a critical function, and you don't want the end customer or anybody to be able to touch this buttons and to switch on and off something. So you can disable this also. You can even disable it via an external object. So this makes it very useful. So you can put this object in the visualization, and then you can disable this additional function with this object. Okay, so this is the. There are also some very interesting things like the toggle function. So the output. No KNX actuator which I know of has the possibility to send a telegram and tell it to toggle, because the toggle function usually is in the push button. But there's a problem with that, because the typical problem is if you have switched off with a central off command a light, and the push button you are using was before you switched the light on with this push button, the next press of that push button will be off, because the push button toggles. So if you switched it on with the push button, the next time you press, you will send it off. So if you switch now off, and you previously have switched it off with the central on-off, so you switched off the light with the off, you are switching off a light which is already off. And this makes, if the customer presses the button, it will switch off something which is already switched off, and the customer will think it's broken, because it won't do anything actually. If you switch off a light which is already off, the light won't react. It's just a press of the button without doing anything. Now, for that not to happen, what the KNX installator should do, had to do from in previous times, was that they have to send the status of the actuator again to the push button, so that the push button knows the status in which it is, so that the next time you press it will do the right action. Now, with this toggle object, you don't need to do that anymore, Because if you send from the push button, either with a 1 or a 0, you can decide it in the application program, or with a 1 and a 0, the actuator will toggle. So it's not important in which state it's in. You just send a 1 to the actuator, and if the actuator was switched on, it will switch off. If the actuator was switched off, it will switch on. This makes it very, very interesting, a very interesting function also. And then, for me, also a very important function in the channel, linked to the channel, are the counters. So there are 2 counters which can work simultaneously. One can be used, for instance, as a run hour counter. So you can count the time the relay is closed, so that you can know how many run hours have passed for this load. So you can for instance, even set it to count down. You can decide to count up, or you can decide to count down. That could be very interesting, for instance, for maintenance in high ceilings. If you have a building with very high ceilings, you can set the lifespan of the lights in the counter, and you set it to count down. So you can then configure the maintenance time, so not depending on the loads when they break, but if the threshold has been reached, the lower threshold has been reached, or if you are very close to 0 lifetime of that bulbs, because it's much more, it costs you much more to hire maybe the huge ladders to go up to the light at the top to change them than the actual bulb itself. So if you know the bulb is very close to its lifespan, you change it, even though it's still working. You change it because it's much cheaper to change the bulb than having to come each time to change one by one the different bulbs. So this is a very interesting function also for the run hour function. Then there's also a switching function. So it counts the amount of switches there. So you can decide whether it counts when it switches on, when it switches off, or both on and off.